What's up, brother? Welcome back to another edition of SHU Outdoors. My name is Mick. I'm your host, and from now on this show, we're going to be on our best behavior, okay? YouTube doesn't like it when I do song reviews or whatever, so I'm going to try to walk a straight and narrow line, right, to get this show up and popping, up and kind of lacking. I didn't invest too much in the studio and too much in hardware and software just to be completely rebelled out and not have YouTube give me no action. So the story I'm going to share with you today, and it is absolutely true story, is a story of Jackie. Jackie, out of my entire prison career, 14 plus years in New York State and 10 years in the federal penitentiary system, was the most thugged out, non-repentant, outlaw gangster that I ever met in any jail that I was in. And that pretty much goes, yeah, I mean, I can't think of anybody that was more thugged out and more gangstered out than Jackie. Now, the story I'm going to tell you today is about one of Jackie's numerous escapes and or escape attempts. The escape itself happened in Richland County, South Carolina, in February 21st, 1991. I'm going to give you a little brief overview of what you can find on the internet, and then I'm going to tell you the real story that Jackie told me while I was his cellie and Canaan Special Housing Unit, which is the official word for the whole. We ended up being cellies for 4 months, and I'm going to do a whole series on Jackie, man, because he's deceased now, and he was an old man when I met him. But me and him used to kick it up and just chop it up all the time. Ironically enough, he was from South Carolina. He had been in the feds when I met him 40 plus years, all right? So, you know, as a result of us being homeboys and being in the same cell in the shoe, we used to chop it up all the time. And for as far as I'm concerned, I mean, he was like a really cool old guy, but he was still a G. He was still a unrepentant outlaw at 75 years old. In fact, he was so G'd out, the federal government was transferring him from Canaan to the special management unit in Lewisburg, Pennsylvania. At the time, that's what they called it, the Special Management Unit, or the SMU. Look different than the SHU, it's the SMU. Similar to ADX, but you got a cellie, you're locked in a cell, and so on and so forth. It's confinement jail, and they were sending him there. He had been in ADX 2 times in the course of that 40 plus years. Got out of ADX, went back, got out, and sent him to USP Canaan, and they were smooing him at 75. So that gives you a little idea of what kind of person you're dealing with. So let's get into what I actually was able to find on the internet to put this in proper context, and then I'll tell you the real story. The specific incident matching your description occurred on February the 21st, 1991, when 2 federal prisoners overpowered a guard at the Richland County Jail in Columbia, South Carolina, and escaped. A summary of the events documented in news articles from that time detail how the escape and subsequent recapture played out. The escape, the incident, federal inmates John William Billy Miller and Michael Fletcher were being held at the Richland County Jail, the local county facility in Columbia that frequently housed federal pretrial detainees and prisoners. Overpowering the guard, the 2 men managed to overpower a jail guard, steal his keys, and scale the facility's perimeter fence and escape into the surrounding area. The confrontation. A few hours after the breakout, Columbia police officers and bloodhounds tracked the fugitives to a wooded area near a local railway line or creek bed. one inmate unalived. During the confrontation with law enforcement, John William Miller was shot and unalived by police officers after he reportedly refused to surrender and lunged at or threatened officers. One inmate recaptured. The second federal prisoner, Michael Fletcher, surrendered to the police without further incident during the same dragnet. He was safely taken back into custody and subsequently returned to federal authorities to face additional escape charges. All right. Now, Mr. Jackie, I refer to him as Mr. Jackie, was Michael Fletcher. All right. This is publicly available information, and it won't hurt Jackie now because he's off out in the happy hunting ground. So this is the rest of the story, what really happened. Jackie and his co-D were already doing a federal prison sentence for bank robbery, all right? And I think he told me he had 25 or 30 years. And because he ended up catching a life sentence for something else in the feds too. But I'm not going to tell you that story today. I'm going to concentrate on this escape. Because he told me so many stories that were actually 100% true that are on the internet, or other prisoners that I talked to totally verified everything he said. So this dude wasn't front. But what happened was him and his co-D were already federal prisoners. They were being held in Atlanta. Federal prison. Now it's the FCI. But back in the 80s when this all occurred, it was one of the high level, very secure, what they call a United States penitentiary. And they charged him and his co-D with additional crimes in Columbia in federal court. So they took them back to the local county jail, Richland County Jail. It also has a wing where they hold federal prisoners, you know, waiting for their cases to play out. So he was already in federal custody, but he got a new charge. Now him and his co-D are back in the county jail facing new federal charges. So, of course, they end up going to trial. They don't take a plea deal. They end up going to trial. They get found guilty. And after you get found guilty, they still do what they call a pre-sentencing report. So you talk to probation officers. They come and interview you and take every detail of your past life down. And it's a pretty big deal in the feds. They go through this whole process with you. So the judge knows exactly, should he show you mercy because you had a horrible childhood, or do you have legitimate mental illnesses? All this stuff comes into play, what they call a pre-sentencing report. It usually takes about a month or two for this to play out, and then you go back to court for sentencing. So during this whole month and a half, 2 months process while they're going through the pre-sentencing report after they've already been found guilty, they come up with a plan. They had a plan A and a plan B, all right? Because in their thinking, it'd be a lot easier to escape from the Richland County Jail than it will be to escape from Atlanta Federal Penitentiary. Very secure facility. Even today, even though it's been downgraded to an FCI, you ain't going to get out of there too easy. Maybe if you're in a camp or something, but if you're behind the walls of USP Atlanta, there's a real good chance you're not going to get out. So their goal was to try to escape from custody before they got back to Atlanta, where they'd be a whole lot more intense security. So plan A, they attempted through one of their contacts on the street to have firearms smuggled into the courthouse. Because this is the 80s, it's not, so they had security, obviously, but probably not anywhere close to the level they had today, in today's world. So that was the original plan, to get guns smuggled into the federal courthouse, okay, and whatever they were going to do from there, okay. Plan A didn't happen. When they went back for sentencing, after the pre-sentencing report phase, it didn't come through. It didn't happen. So there was no guns there, firearms there waiting for them, right? So plan B was they had noticed during the course of them going to trial and getting transported back and forth to court, the way that facility, the county jail, was set up, the officers would pull into a sally port. Those doors would close. Then they would open the door to the jail, get you out of the police cruiser, take you into the jail. That door closed. Then another door opened, and then they had like a booking desk. And then they had like a little door on the booking desk, and behind there was a room with the booking sergeant in it. And he would be the one holding all the guns. So when the police or the marshals or whatever, when they enter a county jail like that, they take the firearm off, put it in like a chute, like a mailbox type of thing. The booking officer pulls it through, takes it, puts it in his safe. Then they bring you into the jail and hand you over to the booking officers, and then the booking process plays out. Well, they had noticed that, and what else they had noticed was that the procedure had become very lax. Otherwise, they were touching on all the basics of the procedure, but they left that door open that went between, like, where the officers that were booking you in, doing paperwork, taking fingerprints, and you standing out here on the other side type of thing, like in a little walkway area with some holding cells behind it. They had noticed that the facility officers routinely left that door open on that little desk petition separating the officers from you, and I'm sure the police officers would be out there with you. That's what happened in this case. The U.S. Marshals were transporting them back to the facility after they had been sentenced. So the marshals were standing out here with them, all right? The booking officers were behind the desk, and then behind that desk was a door, and they could see through the door and saw that's where all the guns were hanging in the safe. I'm trying to be better with the hands and stuff. It's easy to get animated when you're telling a story, but I'm going to try to be better with that. Like I said, this is the whole process, man. And it's very therapeutic. That's why I do it. I gave up on treatment and therapy a long, long time ago, but I find it therapeutic to do like these YouTube shows. And I know there's good people out there who enjoys this kind of content. That's the reason why I'm reining my reckless behavior in and trying to present a more polished product. Okay, so they noticed this. When they come back to the jail, they knew it was now or never. All right, because if they don't do it right now, by the time they come and get them again, it's going to be federal officers, more security, and they're going to be back in Atlanta. So when they came back from sentencing that day, their plan was, when the marshals take Jackie's Code D's handcuffs off, because they take your handcuffs off when you get in the facility, and then you go through the process, and there's officers outside with you, and then booking officers behind you. They leave that door open in case something happens. They can scoot around that desk real quick and assist their fellow officers. But that's also a liability when you got firearms in this room right behind it that they can easily access. All right. So what happened was they took Jackie's Code D's handcuffs off. So marshals did. As soon as they got Jackie's handcuffs off, his Code D hooked off on one of the marshals. Now you're talking about guys that are in phenomenal physical condition. All they do is burpees all day long. You're in a maximum security federal prison, so nobody's listening and no staff member talking about you can't work out. You know what I mean? What does he care? He's got like 4 life sentences. He's never going home, or some equivalent number. People do burpees all day in the United States penitentiaries. Fitness freaks. You know what I mean? Because that's all they got left. Politic and debate about all kind of topics and work out and try to write love letters to their ladies on the streets. I mean, you only got so much to work with, so you try to work with what you got to work with. So these dudes are not only fitness enthusiasts, I mean fitness nuts, to a couple hundred burpees in a clip without like even working at it that hard. So Jackie's Code D punches one of the marshals, knocks him out clean. Then him and Jackie punched the other marshal, and while Jackie's Cody is dealing with that marshal, Jackie runs behind the desk, punches the one officer that they had behind the desk, one officer behind the desk, the booking sergeant in the room with the firearms with the safe open, and two marshals outside with Jackie. So it was technically 4 against 2, and obviously there's other officers in the facility if they hit that panic button. So that could obviously come running, you know. So Jackie goes behind the desk. He punches the dude behind the desk, and I don't know if he knocked him out or not, but he incapacitated him, and he didn't have a firearm on him either, you know, and they didn't have tasers and all that stuff back in the 80s, the early 80s, like they do now, you know. So Jackie ran into the room, spun, because he told me the booking sergeant was sitting up on one of those, like a chair, and it was spin around. That way he didn't have to get up out of the chair to do different tasks. So he told me they had peeped it because there was a big window that where the booking sergeant and everybody could see directly into the sally port. So they had seen him and what he was working with and saw the setup. So Jackie said he ran into the room, just spun the booking sergeant around in his chair, and he went flying. So then Jackie got one of the weapons, tucked it in his waistband, got 2 more weapons, threw one to his partner. His partner, now he's got another gun in his hand. He's holding the officer at gunpoint. Told him don't move. You know what I mean? So the officer didn't move. Wise decision on his part. Jackie told me he started hitting every button in the jail. He said he hit every button in the jail, and the sally port or none of that wasn't opening. So he said he knew he unlocked every cell in the jail. He said one of the last buttons he hit unclocked this door, and he kept hitting buttons, and the sally port door opened. So now they're out. So they leave. He said as soon as they come out of the sally port, there was a police officer, because it hadn't went out that this had happened so quick. Nobody knew what had happened except the 2 marshals and the 2 booking officers that was in the booking room. It's probably a much busier place now, but this is the early 80s, so be mindful of that. So they said they come out of the sally port, and there's a police officer pulling in or parking or whatever. They draw down on him, run up on the car, get him out of the car, okay, handcuff him, take his firearms, but while all this is happening, they realize what had done happened in the jail. He said, man, this is straight out of the Old West. He says they were shooting at us from the edge of the sally port. It was like 200 or 300 feet away, and there was an exit going the other way, all right? So the police officers had already got weapons. Maybe this was a 3 to 5 minute process. So by the time they get the police officer out of his car, handcuff him, take his weapon, now they got 4 guns on him. Excuse me. So now they got 4 guns on him. And the police officers over there have gotten word, and there's 2 or 3 officers doing whatever they're doing that are actually on duty police officers. They don't work in the facility. So once they get word and realize what's happening, they draw down on them, and they start shooting at Jackie and his Cody, and they shoot it out with the police officers right there in the sheriff's department parking lot. Get in the police cruiser, okay, exit, get away. They drove about 5 or 6 miles, because now there's a massive manhunt underway. And back then, they didn't have necessarily low jacks and all this tracking technology that they have now. So once they got out of sight in the police car, they got a chance of taking some back road or a side street and potentially disappearing into the surrounding city, at least for a short period of time, so they get helicopters and whatnot in the air. And that's exactly what happened. He said, Mickey, We got away, and we got about 5 or 6 miles away, and it was on the edge of a park. So we parked the police cruiser up under some trees as much as we could, because we already heard helicopters in the distance. They were only about 5 or 6 miles away from the county jail. He said, but just so happened where we parked, we saw that there was a big drainage ditch, maybe, 5 or 6 feet in diameter, that it wasn't barred, that you could walk in. It was like a drainage ditch that drained in this creek bed that handled excessive runoff from like the manhole covers and stuff in the city of Columbia. He said, so we saw it. He said, we figured, hey, we can get in it, we can go. Maybe it's a tunnel that'll lead somewhere, and we can figure out a way to get away still. He said, that's what we did. We ran into the tunnel. He said, I guess they used, and the news article confirms it, once they saw where the car was, the police cruiser had been abandoned, then they got the canines in, and the canines tracked them to that drainage tube, and he said, we ran and ran. He said, the further we went into it, Mickey, the narrow and more narrow it got. So it was attached to, like I said, like the manholes and all that. Water from the city, whatever, would drain in there, and it would go into that creek bed. He said, but the further we got in it, the narrow and more narrow and narrow it got. He said, it wasn't getting bigger. It was getting like maybe a foot or a foot and a half or 2 foot diameter, maybe whatever. It was too small for them to continue to travel in. He said, at that point, he said the best bet we can come up with is to reverse and go back the other way we came, and try to maybe go up one of these manhole covers or whatever. All right. He said, we came to one, climbed the ladder. As we're climbing the ladder, we get about 3/4 of the way up, and now we can actually hear what's going on the street, and we can hear sirens everywhere, loudspeakers, them telling people to get off the sidewalk. There's dangerous fugitives on the loose, etc. He said they were in the process of removing the manhole covers so they could see down themselves with like one of them little mirrors that they could put on a telescope and look, but not stick their head over. He said that his Code D, because by this time they had tracked them, and this had been going on for a couple of hours. He said, so Mickey, they had big industrial fans at the end of this drainage ditch, and they were pumping in gas. Maybe not the modern mace that we think of today, but they still had all kind of wild gas that they could do that with. He says that they had set these big fans up at the end of the drainage ditch, and they were pumping in all this gas. We couldn't breathe. He said, so my Code D said, hey, man, I'm going to go on up and surrender. I think we're hit. There ain't no way out of this. And he said, well, under those circumstances, seemed like the wise thing to do, because it was obvious we were caught. So now it's just a matter of what is the best way to surrender. Remember, we just staged a violent escape from a county jail and shot it out with local police officers, and now they got us cornered. So we got to be real careful in how we surrender and how we escape if we want to live through this. He said, sure enough, he said his Code D went up the stairwell first, like the little metal ladder, they got where you can climb up them, like for maintenance workers. So he goes up. He said as soon as he got to the top, he said, I'm looking up after him. He said a police officer came right over. As soon as he cleared, before he could even get his hands up, he still got his hands on the ladder climbing. He's at the top, but he has actually cleared where he could get his hands up like this. He said a police officer came right over to him, Mickey, and shot him right in the shoulder, right in the heart. Boom! All right. He said he fell back down the ladder right there at my feet. He said, well, that canceled that idea. I ain't surrendering now. I don't know what I'm going to do, but I ain't going up that hole. So he got out of the way. He said the only thing I could do was to go back down to where I came in and see if I can hear helicopters in the air, because there's helicopters in the air. It's quite possible a news station could be filming, because, that goes out over the radio, and a news station would definitely want to cover that. He said, my hope was that there would be somebody up there with a camera filming it. That way they wouldn't just shoot me down as soon as they saw me. He said, that's the way it played out. He said, I made my way back down towards the entrance. He said, gas was coming. They were blowing it in. There was no getting around this, right? He said, so he starts yelling when he gets about 100 feet from the exit, where they entered the drainage hole. He said, and at that time they gave us, it's still to this day, they give you khaki uniform. So he said, I had whatever, maybe he's wearing the county jails thing, but he had a white t-shirt under it. All right. He took the t-shirt off and started waving it in the air like, hey, I surrender. I'm waving the white flag. Right. So they draw down on him. They get air. He's in their bead, but they can't get to, because the gas is right there. They got gas mask on and all that, but they're there and they're drawn down on him. He said he makes his way out. He surrenders. He said that was the end of the story. He said he made his way out. He surrenders. Obviously, they rough him up, drag him real hard when they get him back to the jail. He said they threw him in the hole. He didn't have nothing coming, right? He was lucky to get fed, type of thing. He said it took the marshals about 2 weeks to come and get him, because now he's been sentenced. So there's no reason to have him in the county jail no more. If marshals come and get him, take him back to USP Atlanta, all right, which he staged another escape attempt from. Unalived another prisoner there, and Jackie, hands down, he was an old man when I met him, but that term is very deceptive. Yeah, he was an old man. He had health issues, but Jackie, he's still rock and roll with the drop of a hat, but he wasn't what you would, you hear a story about a guy like that, you think, well, I wouldn't want to be in a cell with him, and that's fair. And you wouldn't want to be in the cell with him if you wasn't straight up like an official, somebody he considered an official a good wood. Yeah, you probably wouldn't want to be in the cell with him. But me and him got along as good as you can get along with someone like that, because he was very set in his thinking. Right. One time we didn't have an argument, but this is like a typical conversation him and I would have. Jackie, you ever heard of those things called Kindles? What is that? I never heard of it. I tell him, look, man, it looks like a magazine, right? It's thin like a magazine, but it's like this device, and it's got a screen on it. It's like a TV screen, man, but it's real thin, real light, and you could just order a book over what they call the internet, and it would download right on this device, and you could read it, just like it's a book. His response was, man, nah, I don't believe that. I don't believe that. Well, nobody would ever even go for that. How are publishing people going to make money and all this? Because technology had been in prison for so long, technology was even the tech that I was aware of when I got arrested in 2012. I met him probably in 2014, something like that. Sounds about right. They sent me to the hole in USP Canaan, and he was my first cellie in the hole, and we were cellies for 4 months until they finally got around to sending him to the smooth. So I let it go, you know what I mean? Because he's the type of guy, once he gets something in his mind, good luck undoing that, you know what I mean? So I was like, yeah, man, Jack, it's like you can just read the book and it's yours, and just download it. It's digital. Nah, man, Then this is how I would win every argument with him. You got to be tactical when you're dealing with these type of people. You can't. Well, this kind of guy, somebody like Jackie, you're never going to win in no kind of argument, because once he gets his mind made up, it's made up, and that's that. It's almost like moving a mountain to change his mind. So one day I waited until we got a magazine, and it had one of those Kindle devices in it. I said, hey, Jackie, He was down there on his bunk reading because he had the bottom bunk. I was on the top bunk. He was an old man. I don't know where this myth comes from. The guy on the top bunk is top dog. Nobody wants to be on a top bunk. It's a pain. It's a pain. It's a pain, man. Every time you want to get on your bunk, you got to climb up a little ladder, and then you got to get down, climb down a little ladder. You're on the bottom bunk. You can have your feet on the sail floor, and you just got access to everything right there. Nobody wants to be. The top bunk is like, okay, under certain circumstances, I would take the top bunk. And Jackie Stencil, that's my homeboy, ride or die. That was his nickname, man. And he had the bottom bunk. Okay, you got that, Jackie. No beef, homie. You got it. All right. And I'm gonna do a whole series on Jackie, man. He was one of the most solid wood you ever come across. Wood. All right. Look, this is one of the only guys. And I'm going to wrap it up, and I hope you guys enjoyed this episode. I really enjoyed bringing it to you. I find it's very therapeutic again. I just really enjoy it, so that's why I do it, man. Hopefully I can make some money at it at some point, but I'm not really in it for the money. I'm in it for the therapy and the entertainment value that I hopefully provide to you guys. Some of you guys have probably heard about the brand, the Aryan Brotherhood, the original brand out of California. Jackie Stencil was offered entry into the brand. He knew all them dudes. That's how long he had been in federal prison. He knew Tommy Silverstein when he was walking the line. He knew Mary Mills. He knew Clay Fountain. He knew the Snail. He knew all these infamous brand members in the feds, right? And he was a stone cold G, man. I'll just leave it at that, right? And they came to him and said, hey, man, we think you got what it takes to make the cut, man. We would like to make you like a full-fledged member right off the bat because we know you can represent. And to the max, all right? You know what Jackie told him? He said, man, I can't do it. He was real country, too. Daggone it, man. I sure do appreciate the offer, fellas, but I just can't do it. And I said, Jackie, most people wouldn't do that, Jackie. Most people would be like, yeah, I want to join up, because, amongst the whites in federal prison, the brand has a certain thing about them. And most people would not decline a membership into the brand, especially in that era when it's coming from those type of guys. I said, well, Jackie, why didn't you join up? He said, well, Mickey, I'm just going to tell you like it is, Wood. He said, look here, brother. He said, if I don't think somebody needs to get hit, I ain't going to hit them. All right? If they want to hit them, that's their business. But I ain't going to hit somebody I don't think needs to get hit, Mick. But let me tell you something, bro. If I think somebody needs to get hit, I'll hit them no matter what. Nobody thinks about it. He said, that's the reason why I didn't join up, because if I join up, now I got to get down with their program and what they're doing. He said, I like them dudes. Hell, I like the hell out of them guys. Them's my kind of guys. But I didn't want to be obligated to having to do certain things they may or may not be involved in. Not that I was necessarily opposed to it, but again, Wood, let me tell you, brother, I ain't hitting nobody if I don't think they need to be hit. And if I think they need to be hit, I'll hit them. I don't care who's got anything to say about it. Okay? My hat comes off to Jackie. I hope he found a better place. He's deceased now. And I'm not necessarily glorifying anything the guy did or didn't do. It's just a very interesting story. And I feel honored to be able to bring it to you and share it with you. And if you haven't did it already, man, I really would appreciate it if you think about hitting the like and subscribe button if you haven't already did it. I've noticed some creators have, spoke on this, and I knew I was subscribed to their channel, and when I actually checked it, I wasn't subscribed. I had to resubscribe. So maybe you think you're already subscribed to this channel, maybe you're not, or if you haven't subscribed yet, I sure would appreciate it if you think about doing it. It'll really help the channel. And I promise you something, man. I'm going to bring you authentic content, stories told in their proper context. I really can't do the type of show I want to do here on YouTube, but I can do a good enough of the type of show I want to do. I just invested in a really good laptop. That way, I could properly format the videos so I could upload them to like places like X and whatnot. So I intend to do a more raw version of the show in the very near future. Post something like this on X, and then give you extra deep dives over there on. Post something like this, I mean, on YouTube, and then give you extra deep dives into the content over on X. And obviously, man, I'm not monetized yet, but I'm getting close. I'm at like 800 subscribers, which I tell you what, man, I'm extremely thankful for every one of my subscribers. And I know together as a team, we can make this channel successful. And I know out there in YouTube land, it may be kind of difficult to take, to take what a white guy says as being authentic. But let me tell you something, homie. I've been there. I did that. I've been in Attica. I've been in Sing Sing. I've been on Rikers Island. 10 years in the United States penitentiary system. I've seen a lot of things, man. And these stories that I tell on this show are authentic stories. They're the real deal, man. And like I said, we're gonna do a deep dive on Jackie, and just a fascinating character, man, and you never heard his name, and this is doggone shame. So as this series unwinds, we'll do more and more in-depth content, and then we'll just see where it plays from there, man. So I'm not going to talk your ear off anymore. I really appreciate you listening to the content, and if you enjoyed it, I really would appreciate it if you give me a thumbs up and subscribe. Stay up. Peace.